to the Raspy Rundown.
Hi, so excited to be here.
I know, we're doing our first video, which I never normally do because I'm so vain and it's never like always the best time to be filming when I don't have my makeup on. So I put my makeup on today, which I love my makeup. And not only do we have this wonderful video where we're going to be seen by all, we've got a wonderful special guest who I'm so excited to be joining, Jordan Hakes.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
We're
Talk
so
all
excited.
things marriage.
So excited.
Yes, Jordan has her own podcast, The Horny Housewife. So she's going to come on today, and there's going to be so much discussions about marriage and sex, relationships, some hot topics, because, you know, we love our pop culture over here. So we're going to definitely get Jordan's take on all the hot topics. But first, I think we should just get into Jordan and The Horny Housewife.
Wow.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, tell us about yourself. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't want to interrupt Jordan, but I'm so excited. I only watched and listened, well, I should say listened to 1.5 episodes because I want to know about you and how you started, how this all evolved.
Okay. Well, my name is Jordan Hakes, and my podcast is called The Horny Housewife, and I'm 32 years old. And basically, I'm a wife and a mother. And growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I idolized her life. I was like, she can get her nails done whenever she wants. She gets to shop whenever she wants. That is the life I want. And so I got the life that I always dreamed of. And then I am bored and I feel like I have no purpose besides being a wife and a mother. And I felt like I was losing my identity, like who Jordan was. And I have a personality and things I'm passionate about. And I love to talk just like you ladies. And so I made a podcast because I had some friends telling me, oh, you should make a podcast. And I was like, I wonder if that's like really difficult. And I've always tried, like I ran ads for an e-commerce company for a while. So I like really get into the techie stuff actually, but I was like, I'm going to try it. And I have so much fun. We have new episodes every Monday and we talk about sex and marriage. And like, there's so many podcasts that are like about the hookup culture, you know, and the each man and the game. And it's like, I'm trying to like keep my husband obsessed with me, like this one man. So we just have, it's girl talk, like a ladies' locker room talk, if you will.
That's great. And where are you originally from? Like, Jordan, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Texas. So my dad worked for Shell Oil and he's worked for them for a really long time. So we did move around a lot. And I think that is what kind of shaped my personality because I kind of had to be a chameleon in a sense. Like I was desperate for friends. Like I would move in the middle of the school year and I would go, yeah, it's hard. That's like hard when, you have to move all the time. So I was a rebellious teenager and I was a good kid. Like, I guess there's a lot worse rebellious teenagers, but I gave my parents hell for sure. Yeah. But we always ended back in Houston. So that was where I majority of the time grew up.
Okay. And then where did you go from there? Where did you end up going?
Then I went to college. I went to college in San Antonio at University of Texas, San Antonio. Okay. Then I fell in love and he was not a very nice boy. I thought he was nice, but he cheated on me all the time and just treated me really crappy. So we broke up and I felt like I could not live there and not keep taking this guy back. So I moved. I ran away to Nashville and I had lived in Brentwood before, but I was like, I'm going to go downtown Nashville, live like by the coolest stuff. I did, but it was too much fun. Like I had too much fun, but I moved back after a year, but it was the perfect like get away from a breakup. Mm-hmm. And then I worked, I was a recruiter for a company. I met another guy, got in a relationship, and then we ended up moving. It's kind of crazy. We moved to Portland, Oregon, and I thought it was going to be another Nashville experience where like, we'll come back to Texas. And we went, and 21 days later, he left. We broke up. It was like psychotic, actually, the breakup. And he left basically so much. He told me he was living a lie. Like he didn't switch jobs. He didn't switch colleges. Like he just had lied about a lot. So I know. I'm like, how stupid I am.
That's like a TV movie. I think like growing up, I remember watching this, that man that was it? Forgot his name. He had like all these wives. And
Dirty John?
Dirty John. Yes, like a con man.
But that's like the modern version. Yeah.
What was it growing up?
It was a Lifetime movie. It was.
So one growing up, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a very well-known actor that led a lie, and he had these wives in different places.
Oh my God.
He didn't have girls, but he just was like, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
So he was like a trust fund baby, but he had no work ethic, and that was very unattractive to me.
Right.
Like I wanted a hustler, you know?
Right.
And I actually ended up, so I got a job here and I was in sales, and my boss's boss is my husband now in Portland, but I moved like across the bridge 25 minutes. And so I'm in Washington technically.
Okay. You're in Washington State.
Yes.
And then you met your husband. How did you meet your husband?
He was my boss's boss. So he was my boss essentially.
Okay.
And I stole him right up.
Okay. Oh, that's great. And how long have you been married?
We have been married, gosh, when did we get married? 3 years, but we've been together 6.5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And what does he think of the podcast? Did he love the idea? Was he kind of like, I don't want you talking about
I know.
our sex life on there?
I know. I told him, and I was like, I'm going to do this podcast. Are you okay with me exploiting our sex life? And he was like, sure. But he's surprised at how much it's grown, and he doesn't listen to it. So I know, I was like, do you want to? He's like, I really don't want to listen to it. He's like, I'm going to support it from afar, but I probably would be like, what the heck if I listen to it? So he just lets me do it.
That's awesome. He understands. It's like a great outlet, and it's also creative. So you can use your talking skills, right?
Yeah.
And your other people. And it's funny because I have my master's in social work, and I also enjoy this because it's like you're sort of giving your opinion, but sometimes you're giving your thoughts as like almost like advice, but you're also having an outlet to the public, and having that connection when you're a people person, right, is really important.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a journal.
Yeah. And you have a lot of like viewers and listeners who write into you and ask questions and things like that. So you're like a guru for these. Have you ever had like really shocking write-ins or like the anonymous posts? Are you like shocked by some of the things people tell you? Well,
because it's the niche of sexuality, you're going to get a lot of men, so a lot of men message me, and sometimes, it's just too much, or it's, they want to see what kind of person a lot of people are like, are you in an open marriage? I'm not in an open marriage.
Right.
So I think just a lot of very, sexual questions that I have to like tread lightly around, if that makes sense. I just make my intentions known. Like I always want to hear your questions and what you have to say and your experiences for the podcast. Like I'm not here answering 30 men. Like I'm not your therapist, like one-on-one. So
Yeah, because I was thinking like, growing up in my era, I'm a lot older than Jordan and Alexandra. So I'm 54. Jordan looks amazing. She's 32.
Yeah.
32. And Alexandra's 23. So it's interesting. We've got like, the 20-year gap between you and I. Like you could technically be my daughter, which I kept like, how could I have 30 years? It's weird. I always seemed younger in my personality. But growing up, like Dr. Ruth, I don't know if you're.
I do. I know who Dr. Ruth is.
Yeah. And I'm 4'10". Like I'm actually really short.
You're tiny.
I'm really tiny. But I'm 4'10", and Dr. Ruth was like 4'10" or 4'9" or 4'11". And I remember growing up with that. My father was a psychiatrist. That's one thing that, and again, this podcast, it's really unauthentic and things come to my mind. I didn't plan this. But one thing I will say is growing up, my father was very open about sex. He was a psychiatrist, and he was a cool guy. He died really young at 64 in his sleep. He was a little guy, but always really open. Whenever I was dating growing up, I was always open to talking about my relationships. And my dad was really always there for me. Being a psychiatrist and being really down to earth, it made it a really open forum. And I remember growing up in that era. And then when Dr. Ruth came, on board talking about sex therapy and all that kind of stuff, it was very interesting. I would listen to it. But I'm wondering, what comes to my mind is like, what makes you different from like a Dr. Ruth? I don't know if that's a hard question, I mean, obviously you don't have the medical background, but
yeah, exactly. So I'm not really an expert on the topic.
Right.
I think that it fills the niche of, I think there's a lot of mismatched libido partners where someone has a higher sex drive, like your sex drives aren't exactly the same. And basically just talking about the realities of intimacy and marriage. And it's not like the movies. Like you have ups and downs and seasons. And sometimes people just want to be able to relate and then come together, and because they know they're still choosing their marriage, they're going to trudge through and they're committed instead of like, oh, this doesn't serve me anymore, I'm out.
Right.
I think there's a group of people who want to relate to people that want to talk about that stuff.
Right. Like, I think, because like what comes to mind is, remember there was Dr. Laura, I forgot what her last name was.
Dr. Laura Berman on like the radio.
I don't know if it was Berman. I get her confused with Dr. Laura. I forgot.
Oh, I was thinking of Dr. Laura.
I don't think it was Berman. I think it's just Dr. Laura. It's not the one that lost a child. It's the other lady who I used to listen to her all the time.
On the radio, she does like late night. She answers.
Yeah, but there was two different Lauras, but Berman might be the one that lost her child. But Dr. Laura, they would always give advice about, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I'm thinking like maybe what makes you different is that people can relate to you more, because we're not dealing with so much that it's just the medical standpoint. You're saying from an emotional standpoint, from right and wrong, like don't give up on your marriage so soon just because maybe you haven't had sex in a couple weeks or whatever. Maybe you have stress in your life, and maybe there's ways to have better communication. And what's right for one person, it might not be what's right for, it's not a cookie cutter situation.
Exactly.
Doctors talk about, right? Some of these therapists will say, well, this is not good. Well, maybe what works for one person doesn't work for the other. And life is funny. It might affect some relationships differently when you have children. I have 3 of them, God knows.
Yes.
And we're all in different places. And so like, one person like could be just ready to go and have that sex. Another person might be like, you know what? I'm not feeling it because I'm dealing with this stressor in my life. And kids add stress in your life. So
and you can also take it and have people who, I've seen people submit questions like they want to bring someone else into the marriage, or they're swingers. I mean, I'm jealous. I can never. I think
I'm too jealous. Yeah.
But like, what happens if that works for one partner and another partner? Like, then you guys are not on the same page. How are you ever? Right. How is that going to be a healthy?
I'm more linear. I'm not jealous. It's not so much jealous. It's just more like, that's weird to me. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't fit my life.
I mean, and you also probably didn't grow up or like get married and hear about all these crazy, like things have really changed in this
Things
era.
are crazy. Things
are getting worse with each generation. But, like what I'm saying, like that Dr. Laura, people call me about advice, and they're like, do it this way. Like, I'm not a firm believer. Like, that's why I think it makes you unique yourself, Jordan, too, is like, you might give some advice and thoughts like we do, but at the same time, we're not closed-minded. Like,
it's just perspective. It's just,
And you also have a successful marriage and have kept your man. So, I mean, I go to Jordan for advice. I'm like, she's been here. She's a few years older. When I ask her all these crazy questions, she's always so nice about it and like gives solid advice. And when you listen to her podcast, it feels like you're getting advice from like a best friend.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping for. Just like that trust from the community, and that there's so many people that feel like rejected by their spouse, and then they're going to come ask me, and I'm like, hey, you shouldn't be asking me, you should be going asking her, and maybe having people realize like, oh, let me turn inward into my marriage instead of looking outside for all the answers. But like you said, there's some things I totally don't relate to. Like I talked about in my last episode, cuckolding, which is like someone being interested in seeing their partner with another person. I don't relate to that, but the psychology behind it really fascinates me because it's like, what, is this a healthy habit? Is this acting out? Is this sex addiction? Is this,
I was just going to say, where is that line? What is that, terminology? So like you're bringing things to light in like letting people, it's like a sounding board. You're like a sounding board. Without giving medical expertise, it's more lighthearted, but real conversation that a lot of women and men don't want to talk about.
Exactly. Like the taboo topics that are really hard to talk about.
Right. And like having a social work background, having a father as a psychiatrist, it's funny. I felt like I was just always open, more talking about dating with my dad. I never had to hide anything. My mom was easy too. My parents were really down to earth people. I was very lucky. I was in that open generation where we just talked everything out. And I had a best friend whose father was so strict. And, even though he knew we were good girls and everything, she was Italian. It was that Italian mentality. And I'd be, look, you got to take it from where it's coming. We have good common sense. And I do believe sometimes if you constrict that and you're controlling and you don't allow the openness, then kids will rebel.
And then that's when you start keeping secrets. And so
I never needed to rebel.
That how you so Alexandra, is that how you grew up? Like, do you relate to your mom in that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's just like my generation, but I don't know. I mean, would I come and start talking about sex to you? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always been open.
You knew you could.
I never felt like I had to hide anything.
Yeah, I never really necessarily talked about sex with my dad, but my dad would open up the discussion.
Right.
He might say something funny, but it was mostly more about just liking a guy, dating a guy, bringing him into the house, meeting my parents. It was more of that openness, not really detailed about our, if we're having sex.
Right.
Details, yeah.
My girls never said, I'm having sex or I'm not having sex. They knew they could come to me, but it just never came up. Not because we're weird. It's just Alexandra was much more of a rebel. Olivia was never a rebel. So Alexandra thought I was controlling, but I was never controlling.
I think we just think our moms are. I thought the same thing. I thought my mom was a helicopter mom. And now as a mother, gosh, I hope I'm half the woman that she was.
Yeah. I laugh. I'll watch stuff on funny shows, Alexandra, that will come up. And I'll be like, if I was like that, Alexandra would die. Alexandra thought I was controlling. If I said anything. And I'll watch shows funny shows out there. You've told me to watch it. I'm like, there was a movie that was on. I'm like, I go to Vinny. I go, oh my God, Alexandra should see this.
So you're lucky. You're lucky, Alexandra.
I was so easy. She is lucky.
I was I'm 16. I'm going to be married to this man in 2 years. I'm going to sleep at his house for 5 days. Stop trying to stop that.
That's funny. My parents definitely, I saw them as their daughter. I saw my parents always choose each other. It was not always good. And there were harder years than others. And I've seen them have terrible arguments, but there were sometimes I'd go sleep over at a friend's house and they don't even sleep in the same bedroom. Or they're I can't imagine seeing my parents kiss. My parents were very affectionate. And so I think that was a really powerful example that I didn't even know was powerful at the time, that they were, I knew they had a sex life. I know that sounds gross and I'm their kid, but I knew my parents were into each other. And I really admire that.
Right.
Because I wanted that.
Yeah, I grew up the same way. I always look at how my dad treats my mom, and that's what I strive for in a relationship. He's not a big drinker. He's really always has been there for me, does everything for us. So I kind of look at that and it's that's the type of guy I want. It set a great example. They've been married for 20 something years.
28.
Yeah. So there you go.
28 years. You should be telling us how to stay married. You should tell me how to stay married.
I'm married at 26. Yeah.
What's the secret?
I don't know. He's just really easygoing. He doesn't have a wandering eye. I would never even be jealous in a minute. He's just really.
You've never wanted to kill him? Have you ever wanted to a little bit?
I get mad at him. I get mad at him a lot, but we talk out things. We talk everything out, open communication. He's a family man, very, very devoted. And he's a take care of a person, not enabler, but just loves to be. He's an only child, which is unusual for an Italian man. And I look at the relationship my in-laws had, and they were so cute together, old-fashioned Italians. And my mother-in-law helped me raise my children after my father-in-law passed away. She helped me raise all my children. I was like her daughter. And I see the way he took care of his mother, and she was good to him without him being a mama's boy. And he just sort of passed it down to his family.
He's a good provider.
Very good. And very, very emotionally there and with it. And
that's hard to find now. Emotionally available men. That's
absolutely
hard.
Never brought his work home with him ever. And he's a New York guy.
You're lucky. You're lucky, lady.
Very, very. And my friends are all oh my God.
They all call him Saint Vincent.
Well, the other day they call him Saint Vincent. They always used to. One of my best friends was Mrs. Belushi, why didn't you have another child? You should have had another child. Because I have a friend that has more the typical Italian, traditional. My husband's not traditional in the negative sense. He's traditional in the positive sense. I mean, we were at a movie the other day and he's like, let me get you tea. What kind of tea do you want? Because they serve
Aw.
tea, coffee, and then comes to sit down. And my girlfriend and I went to the movie with him, and because she's divorced, and he's like, oh, let me wipe your tea. Your tea's dripping. And he's like,
Aw.
wiping my tea. I mean, you can't make that up. I'd rather have that than flowers. You know, it's more of a authentic, intuitive thing, not a planned, oh, I have to get a card because it's a card time of year. It's like a lot of times we're like, I don't need a card. You don't need a Valentine's
And I
Day.
would say your love language is like signs of affection or like tasks of, because you know how they have those 7 like.
It's 5 love language, right?
Tell us. Sorry, the expert. Tell us.
Yeah. Okay. There's 5 love languages. I'm not an expert. I might mess it up. Okay. It's acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, and then, what's the 5th one? I don't know.
I'm impressed. You remember those?
Quality time, acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts. Yep.
Oh, you have to send
like
me
gifts.
that. I got to see that on my text. I want to.
Which one is you? I think you probably are. What was the first one? Acts of service. Because like you like when he does things like the tea and all of that.
I appreciate that so much.
I like everything, but I think maybe words of affirmation.
I'm a words of affirmation girl. And that is, I think, a dangerous one for girls to be, because men can be talk, and they don't walk the walk. So you need to have like a backup one. But physical touch is good too. I know gifts is good, but you have to find out which one your partner is, and then they need to know which one you are, because sometimes if theirs is acts of service, for instance, and they're doing something for you because that's how they feel love, and then mine is not acts of service. So when my husband's washing all the dishes and picking up everything, I don't care. Like I'm like, thank you. But like, I'll do it. I have no problem doing it. I want him to like come sit down and ask me how my day was and give me a kiss and check in with me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's hard because like, for me, my husband, he's a jokester. Like he's got a great sense of humor. So words of affirmation sometimes could be weird for me because he jokes a lot, right? So words of affirmation, yes, you could get I love you, whatever, but sometimes I'm like, Benny, I'm not in the mood for a joke right now, or I'm not like, so sometimes I don't want an affirmation of, but that's the way that was one of the things I was drawn to, his sense of humor. Like he's really real, and he makes jokes and he makes people laugh. And my friends are always, oh my God, you're so funny. You have another friend we've had her on the podcast, Tao, and she can be sarcastic. And the two of them, I'm like, oh my God, the two of them together. So it depends on the affirmation that's coming out at that moment. Totally. But I definitely like affection too. Yeah, I definitely like affection. But life gets in the way sometimes, and I won't lie. Sometimes it lacks, when you're stressed. My stress, the way I handle stress is different the way Vinny handles stress. So a lot of times, I'll be worried about something and I'll be angry about it, whatever. And he's more calming, and then I get mad and why are you so calm about it? Get angry about it, or so.
I relate to that. Yeah.
It's sometimes tough. Men can definitely, I think, can compartmentalize that and still want to be intimate if you're having a bad moment, and you're not in that framework of being intimate, and they want to be intimate even with all the chaos going on. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and sometimes women might take it more emotionally. Like, why would I want to hook up with you right now? Do you see what's going on? Like, damn. I want to talk it through.
They have 2 different brains, like a brain up here, a brain down there.
Right. And my husband's a jokester. He'll make funny sex jokes like, oh my God, I don't want to embarrass him. He's listening to this. But he'll do these sexual innuendos in a cute way, like a Vinny way. And I'm just like, I can't even like relate to what you're saying.
The boy thing.
Hook up in Alexandra's time,
Culture.
Alexandra's whatever era.
I didn't approve of.
But it comes across like he's ready for action pretty much. But I'm like not there because I'm just like focusing on whatever has popped up at that moment.
They say that like women are crock pots and men are microwaves or something. Like we take a little longer to warm up, and men are like 30.
Oh my God, that is hysterical. My husband's become a really, really avid cook person this year to survive with the pandemic, because his mother used to cook all the time for us. And he loves cooking. I got to tell him that's hysterical. Oh my God. That would be a great, Alexandra, that would be a great apron to get Dad.
Yeah, that would. I should put that on an apron. Oh my
Olivia
God.
wants to buy him an apron because my husband's turning 60, does not look 60 this week, the 23rd. And I think Olivia wants to buy him a new apron, he said.
I can get that made. Tell her to answer one of my texts if she can hear this.
Yeah.
Nice
I mean,
if she got
he'll
back.
make jokes all the time, like, Debbie, I'm not ready to breastfeed. Like, I'm not breastfeeding or whatever. Like,
I
he's
don't get
joking with the fact that he does so much. Like, nothing to do with actual breastfeeding. Like, he'll make statements that are so funny when he's like, you know, I can't breastfeed right now, I'm cooking or whatever.
Like meaning he can't tend to you kind of thing, like you're on your own.
Right now, right. He's so funny. But yeah.
What about your husband? I want to hear a little bit about Jordan.
Tell us about your husband.
Derek? Okay, so he started a company. He worked in sales for like merchant services. Boring. We don't need to talk about that. But he worked in a company for a long time, and he finally about a year ago exactly, left to start his own company. So this last year has been like monumental for our family and like a transition time. And with the pandemic coming and working at home, it's been really hard for our relationship, actually, with him literally working downstairs with 2 other employees every day. They move into an office in 2 weeks. Praise God.
Right.
But it's been hard, but he is, sorry. Derek is an Aquarius. So if you know anything about Aquariuses, he is very stoic. So he does not wear his heart on his sleeve. And he is very generous and very loyal. He's the most loyal man I've ever met in my life.
That's all I can ask. That's
Wonderful.
my number one.
That's a plus.
Loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is I've never met a man more loyal, and that's why I married him. And he's a really good dad, good dad.
And also you can relate. My dad works from home during the pandemic, and I'm sure like you guys, both of you, like on top of each other. And I've always thought about this too. I did the pandemic alone, and I loved it. I was thriving. Like, you know, I just like did whatever the hell I wanted. I worked out 25,000 times a day. But I can't imagine being stuck with one person. Would if I
and a child.
Would they have survived? That's nuts. I mean, I can. So many people got divorced during that time, and so that's like a testament that both of your marriages lasted. And also, like you just said, he's a great dad. So you have a son and a stepson.
Yes.
I feel. What is that like? Like with his. I don't know. Could talk a little bit.
That's a whole world, because with a stepson, especially. Because I have friends that are have stepchildren, and then the other parent isn't involved at all, or it's just a different situation. His mother is a good mom. We're nothing alike personality wise, but Rylan is a testament to having good parents. Like he's a very well mannered,
I love that name.
Good boy. And it's hard though, because it was like I had to earn him liking me, it felt like. And I'm always walking this line of like wanting him to like me, but he has this loyalty to his mother who doesn't really like me. And then I'm having to walk the line of like, I'm still your authority. Like, so you have to listen to me because I'm parenting you too. And we call it like a bonus mom, you know? But it's hard. It's really hard because sometimes he chooses his mom over me anytime. And I feel rejected a lot sometimes by that. Like he doesn't say, I love you to me.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how old is he?
He's 11, but he's been in my life since he was 5.5.
See, that's wow. Okay. Yeah. That is very hard that's not like, you just came into his life when he was already becoming a teenager. You've known him since he was a little boy. He should have grown up. Just second nature, you being his second mom. Love it. Like, I love you.
I know. I think it's something with his mom, and his mom got married, had a baby, got divorced. Oh. So he's had a lot of
come and go.
Mm-hmm. And that affects kids. It affects children.
And also, you said she doesn't like you. So I'm sure kids are really smart. He probably picks up on that, whether she verbalizes that or he just is intuitively picking up on that. So that's tough, because you said something really nice. You didn't say anything negative about her. You said it was a testament to good upbringing. And so right there, I give you kudos for that, because that's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to sit here and talk smack about her, but I just know that like it doesn't benefit Rylan, and me and her getting along is what's best for Rylan, because then we're all thriving and we can be together, because baseball games are every week. Like we're around each other enough
ask.
where we have to get along.
Right.
Right.
But is there ever like joint family things, like, or no? Is it kind of just like separate?
I mean, we get together for like all of Ryland's things,
right.
but no, like holidays are separate. This year he's going with us to see my family. We're going to Destin, sorry, for Christmas.
Where's Destin?
Florida?
Destin, Florida. Yeah, my family, my mom passed away 2 years ago, but my dad and his fiance we're all going to Destin for a bit in like a big Airbnb to do Christmas. And Ryland's coming with us.
That's great.
So, yeah. But it is hard being a stepmom. And then having my son who, all he knows is his brother. He defines a brother as someone who's there half the time,
Right.
So, and people are like, have another baby. I don't want another baby.
Yeah. You're happy with what you have.
Yeah, I'm totally fulfilled.
I have a lot of friends with one child. I have a lot of friends. And it's fine. Absolutely.
Children are hard, and like they deserve the best, and they deserve really good parents. And I can't have another one.
One thing I couldn't imagine would be
Yeah.
having a baby. Like, you had all your kids together, Mom, like 3 years apart. One thing I would never want is to have a child be at the age of like 9 or 10 or 12 and then have
start
another
over.
baby. Why would I ever want to do that? I want to either pop them out like
Pop
two
them out.
back to back and be done. I think it's also weird that you're like pregnant with an older child, because then like, I don't know. I think that's weird. I don't know.
It's
Personally.
so funny. I
And they
met
can play together.
my mother's aide. She had a baby. She's I think she's almost 50. She had a baby in her 40s, and she has like a 23-year-old son. She's like a 2-year-old.
I want them to
Especially now, people are like, didn't like on Ariana Maddox, she's on Vanderpump Rules. Didn't she just save all of her eggs and she's like 34 or something? And I'm like, how can you do that?
Sheena did that. And then Kenya Moore from Real Housewives of Atlanta had a baby, as you know, Mom from Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, she's 50s.
Yeah.
She's 50, right?
Yeah, like
Wow.
49. It's nuts.
There's a girl I knew I went to high school with. She had a baby
Right.
at 48. She only had one child. She never had kids, and she had a baby at 48. That's a
My
lot.
brother is adopted, and my family adopted him when my mom was 42. So like they were the older parents, but she didn't birth him.
Right.
But yeah, it was because me and my brother are 10 years apart.
Right.
So we didn't even really have a relationship because I moved out of the house at 18 to go to college, and he's 8.
Right.
So it wasn't until we were adults, but now we're really good.
Oh,
Yeah.
and is he in Portland or he's in Texas? Probably.
He's in Texas. He goes to Texas Tech right now.
Oh, that's great. No, but it's weird. And as you know, too, raising them all together, they play together, they grow up together, but it's a lot.
Because then you don't have to play because Hudson's by himself, he wants me to play with him all day.
Right.
If you have the other babies, they can play together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work, and it doesn't end when they get older. You just have
Different problems.
Yeah, bigger problems. Bigger kids. I mean, I feel like I'm busier now than I ever was. I mean, my son, I'm looking at colleges with, just dealing with transitioning, schools when my daughter transferred, then my older daughter getting her master's, and, relocating, and, you're still mom, and you're still trying to carry things a certain way and be there for everyone. It's a different type of responsibility, but
And then they'll get married, and then there'll be grandkids, and then it's like starting all over. But people are getting married like later and later now in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know Alexandra had a question about that, right, Alexandra? Regarding marriage in your 30s and 50s.
Growing up, I wanted to be married at like 21 and have a baby.
Me too.
And then, right. And then now thinking about it, it's like, oh my God. And then, like you said, kids are a lot of work to have to go through all that more than like once or twice. I don't know if I even could. I wanted like 4 kids at 21, whatever. And now it's like, that's just my career is like, obviously who doesn't want like a great relationship? Yes. But I want to also pursue my dreams and have both at the same time. So it's so different.
And then knowing you're not like dependent on anyone. That, like if you wanted to do something, you could. And because I won't lie, I had that like I want to get married young and have kids. And I didn't get married I was 27, 28 when I got married.
Yeah, I was 26. Wow, yeah.
So I feel like, but it did take some of my independence away because I am completely financially dependent on my husband. And it's like, okay, I want to do other things too. And as long as that person is supportive of it, I feel very blessed that I don't have to go out and work. to bring it to pay our bills, but he supports me putting in time into something I love to bring something in.
And that's really a good point, Jordan, because even my husband, he is so thrilled that I do this. Like when Alexandra and I took a break from the Raspy Rundown, I've been getting busy, things pop up. He's like, oh, I'm missing the Raspy Rundown. I want to hear more. When it's like he listens to every episode. And obviously it's different than, he might listen if I had a sex episode too, but but
that's sweet that he does. Yeah.
It's nice that he really thinks it's a great thing. Like he really supports it. And doesn't just, I don't even have to remind him. He's just like, when are you and Alexandra putting out another episode? Like he loves to see that dynamic between me and Alexandra. So that's really, really sweet.
And think about looking back on like these episodes, you know, and then seeing it.
And we're all at a company. We can all be in a studio one day doing this laughing and being like, remember when?
Yeah, I mean,
we will.
Like we want to think positively, and it's just happening, oh my goodness, happening, you know, going forward with each week and putting out great content that you don't really realize that we are doing it and we're moving forward, all of us, the way things happen. I mean, it wasn't like I said, okay, my kids, because I'm on the opposite spectrum, I'm almost empty nesting, right? My youngest is 17 going off. So I'm at the very end now. And I'm always like, well, do I want to get a job? What would I want to do? I love people. I love animals. I love to volunteer. But this just fell into our lap as well. And we're taking off with it and trying to make the most of it. And I can still do other things, but I enjoy it.
Or a PTA mom, you don't have to ever, sorry, you're too busy. You have a podcast. You cannot be the booster mom.
Right. I don't want on one of my podcasts. Yeah. The whole booster mom.
But no, I do think marriage in your 30s versus 50s is different. I want to know from both of you guys, like, what is that like? And I mean, you can talk to about when you were in your 30s, mom, and how marriage was.
Yeah, I want to hear that. I want to know, because you have more experience. You've been married a lot longer. Right. What was your marriage like in your 30s versus now?
So in my 30s is when I actually had all my kids, right? Because I got married at 26. I had Alexandra at 30, almost 31. And then I had Olivia at 34 and then Evan at 37. I, never planned like, I'm going to definitely have 3 kids. I always wanted 2. And then after we had the second, I was like, yeah, maybe 1 more. And with my husband, we always had to talk everything out. Like, it was like, because financially, we wanted to make sure we were stable. And it is a big responsibility. I was fortunate, Jordan, in the fact that I always had my mother-in-law. So it made it so much easier to raise 3 kids. I won't lie. I don't know if I would have had 3 kids without the support of my mother-in-law. I was like her daughter because, like I said earlier in the podcast, she never had any other children. So I was her only daughter. She was there for me throughout everything, lived close by, cooked meals, was always home when I needed someone to watch one of my babies. If I was running with one, she would take voluntarily the other. She never learned to drive. I wasn't a great cook. So we always helped each other out with that. I would drive her everywhere and she would cook.
That's so nice. That's so nice.
It was really an unusual bond. Like the olden days, like way earlier than when I was,
I would scream like mom and
both.
Yeah, I would scream mom and she'd say, yeah. She would say, what?
I called her mom. She didn't know if she was answering or I was answering. It was a very incredible bond. So throughout those years, I had her up until like 3 or 4 years ago. And so my youngest is 17 now. So I had her up until my youngest was like 13. I had her for the important years. I mean, I wish it was never enough. I would have loved her even longer. And I took her on vacation with us and we had dinner every night. And when Vinny would go on a business trip, I'd ask her to sleep over and she'd never hesitate. I mean, I let her have dinner with dad every night, every time dad was there.
Was there less fighting though, because someone was helping raise the kids? So
it was amazing.
She wasn't long alone with the kids and then you would send dad.
Yeah, great company. If dad was away or if dad works in New York City, he had late hours. She was always there to keep me company and be there for me.
Probably that probably was an ease on your marriage because when I had Hudson and I got back from the hospital, in his little room that I all decorated. And, you know, someone can tell you what it's going to being a mother's like, but wait until you have that baby. And I'm trying to get the baby to latch. You know, I'm breastfeeding. There's milk everywhere squirting out of me like a geyser. The baby doesn't want to, Hudson doesn't want to sleep at nighttime. You know, he wants to be awake during the daytime, and you're sleep deprived, which makes you feel like you're losing your mind. Right. You have no idea what you're like, I'm a mother now. Like, I'm changing and wiping poopy butts, like all of this new stuff. And Derek had to go back to work. He is like, if there's like 6 feet of snow, like he's going to get to work. Like he is a worker. And I was like, Mom, and she's like, I'm flying in tomorrow. And she stayed for 2 weeks. And I cannot imagine how I would have made it, because I needed to sleep. I needed to rest. I probably would have killed my husband. Like, I would have murdered him.
It makes a big difference. And I had this mother-in-law that didn't even have to really be asked. I mean, this is what she lived for. I wanted her to be with her son and have dinner. I didn't have a jealousy. I had a wonderful.
So you never were like, get out of our, like, did she ever pry in your marriage?
No, like she was always so great. Like, in fact, as the kids got older, I'd be like, Mom, please, could you sleep over? I know they're older, but I need you to sleep over because I got to bring this one to this school in the morning and I don't want to leave anyone home alone. And she's like, all right. And she'd be like, I need a day off or something, you know, joking with me.
Having her, you know, stay with us when I was in high school, but because Olivia and Evan were young, it was just like, you know, I was like, nobody was watching me at all. It was beautiful. That was my thing. I'm going out. I'm going to bed.
And her age difference with my parents was a big difference. So she was more, even though I called her mom, she was more like a grandmother because my parents were a lot younger. So, and my dad died young. So she was there through that whole issue with me and being sad and helped me through that. And she just was always there. So in my 30s, my dad was alive till I was 39. So I had all my kids by 37. So my dad died right before my son was 2. And so they were great years, but they were hard years too with his passing. And they also were monumental because, yes, having kids, even with that help, it was a big change. I won't lie. Even having all that help, it was like, oh my God, did I give up my independence? You know, there was that fear, but I worked through that and they were great years, with the exception of my dad passing, great years. I loved the baby stage. My son was so easy. Having sisters, he was such a calm boy. He wasn't your typical boy. He was really chill.
My kid is not calm.
No, really, and he's still calm to this day. The 30s were great. The 40s sucked because my dad was dead and kids were getting older and getting into the teenage years. And the 50s were continuing teenage years and like lifestyle changes.
Is becoming like an empty nester, like
sucks
now. Well, but I remember when my brother was leaving and my mom was like panicking about becoming an empty nester. She's like, what am I going to do with my time? Like she started doing like child advocacy stuff. And she said that it was like, now me and your dad can like be goofy. Cause I never saw my parents really drink or party or anything like that, but like they would go have fun sometimes, but just they didn't do that in front of us, you know? And so she's like, now we can kind of be goofier together, or like they can have sex in the middle of the day if they want, where they couldn't before. So I'm sure there's like some perks coming.
There should be some perks. I mean, I think because I'm still like in it with the kids right now, I'm sure there will be. Like, I can't wait to just be free, maybe financially at some point, and just be able to do whatever we want. And I do look forward to his retiring because my husband does have a lot more interest than me. So I'm not one of these people that like, oh my God, when he retires in 5 or 6 years, to have him home, what's that going to be like? That's
he does Reiki, he does karate, like.
Oh wow, Reiki. He does. Wait, what was the first one you said?
Reiki. He's a Reiki master.
Oh my gosh, I thought that's what you said. That is so cool.
He does Reiki. Yeah, he's a Reiki.
Does he do it on you?
Yes. Yes, he does it on our dog.
One time I had like this thing on my tailbone and I was so much pain, and then one day it stopped hurting, and then he texted me that night and was like, did you feel a difference? I did Reiki on you. And I was like, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, he's so really, really multifaceted.
So he is spiritual.
Very spiritual.
Oh, I love it.
He does Reiki. He does his own meditation. He meditates a lot. He does a lot of karate.
Well, this is why you have such an amazing husband, because he's like woke. Yeah.
He's in. He's in. I mean,
That's cool.
I've been known to have him like break up marriages because the men's wives get jealous and be like, why can't you be like Vinny?
Why can't you be like that?
Okay, let's get into some pop culture.
Okay.
We have 3 big hot topics. We want to start with Megan Fox and MGK because that's just like always on my mind. So they're together. They like out of nowhere, she was basically in retirement, kind of hiding away, married to Brian Austin Green, love you, David Silver. And they got divorced and she met Machine Gun Kelly, who is weed.
I read that they met when she was still married to Brian.
Yes. Well, I read too that they had met years ago, but she didn't see his face and he just was a ball of weed or whatever, a smell of weed. And because of that, she's like, it would have been torture if I had seen his face and, you know, had to go on with my life knowing he's out there, but I can't have him. And then, yeah, she started filming the movie. She said didn't get divorced because of him, but they met. I don't know if it was like separated or what, but she was married to Brian and they met on the movie set. And like, she said she did the movie because she knew he was going to be there.
I bet you that maybe she had been in an unhappy marriage where she wasn't, you know, feeling maybe heard, seen, or she just wasn't watering her marriage. There you go. Because I listened to like a little snippet of an interview from Brian Austin Green, and he said that like Megan, it was very like he was protecting his ego and family because they have kids, you know.
Right.
So if their kids hear this one day, they don't want to be like, mommy was a whore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So maybe that he was protecting his family, but he's like, she sat down and said she was happier there without me alone than she is here. And it was time for her to move on. And I fully support it, blah, blah, blah. So who knows? But she's back in the spotlight now. I mean, she's older than Coulson, right?
Yeah, she's 4 years older. Right, Mom?
Yes, she is. She's
years
in her,
older?
just like, right. Yes, she is.
And MGK is a bit of a lost soul, I feel like. Like I just went to his concert, like literally last week. And I felt like he was in a bad mood.
Yes.
He didn't come back for an encore.
Oh my gosh.
It was just really, it was a little bizarre. And then the next night I saw videos of his concert and he was like so chipper and happy, had like a little girl on stage. I think she has like this perspective of like relationships are maybe seasonal and like universal lessons. And so maybe she's just like writing this twin flame thing.
She is. She said like that's her soulmate and they're meant to be together on a deeper level and she doesn't even know what life is before him.
Yeah, I saw they had something on. I was watching the other day on Facebook. They were asking each other questions about each other.
Yes, that was a GQ article, Megan. And did you watch it?
That was recorded before what you're talking about though, right?
Yes.
So, and I think that came out the day after Portland concert. Did it not? Maybe I'm wrong, but he was like, how was the concert? He was like cold because the whole time on stage, he kept saying like how cold he was and how miserable the weather was. But yeah, it was a lot of it's a very young crowd that comes and sees him, which kind of makes my heart sad as like an old mom because I'm like, the lyrics aren't very good for little kids, you know, but they're a cute couple.
I mean, I know I do, but I do feel bad for the kids. Like, I mean, Brian Austin Green, I never, to be honest, nothing against either Megan Fox or Brian Austin Green, but I never saw them as a couple. I feel like he married her like he thought he was marrying status. Like she never came across to me like a very warm type of individual. And this Sharna is completely different on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, it's the first season I'm watching in many years, and she seemed like a very warm individual. And I don't understand how him and Megan survived as long as they did and had 3 kids. I know there was a period where they were
separated, and then she got pregnant with the 3rd kid.
And I've heard like Megan stans say that Brian Austin Green was very controlling and kept trying to get her pregnant to keep her to like maybe to cave to be like cave to motherhood and like what he wanted her to be.
Right, because he was insecure.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows the story?
He doesn't strike me as somebody that is a secure male. Like I feel like he worshipped her. Like he just felt she was so above him. Like he was so in awe of her. You know.
And as far as like status stuff goes, I heard that like remember when they kind of announced they were a couple on Lala and Randall's podcast?
Yes.
I heard that like Lala was like, well, we weren't we weren't Courtney and Travis, and they want to hang out with like it people, and we just like we're reality TV, whatever. So
Right,
maybe
like Megan and MGK, they want to be in the spotlight. They're doing a movie together now. I think they want to ride this fame out. I think she wasn't done with fame, and she didn't want to just, do motherhood like we've talked about, and she wanted something else. And she says she's dark and she has body dysmorphia, but she's like, do you guys think they're going to be together forever? Do you think this is stable?
it sounds toxic as hell.
It does. When I started to read that article, I don't think maybe I read the whole article. I think I did read the whole article. I didn't watch the whole video. It's very toxic. I honestly don't know anything about him. I didn't even know he did drugs, to be honest. Alexandra told me. Like,
I mean, his concert, so like the stage is coming to life, right?
Right.
It's all pill bottles. Like the whole,
Oh my gosh.
the whole scene is drugs and pharmaceutical drugs and I could understand them be the Alice in Wonderland vibe, but like it was like RX bottles and talking about just like the sad kind of drugs, that people turn to in a really dark place. And the damaging thing about it is that we look at MGK and Megan Fox, like I love seeing the pictures. Like they're beautiful, and Megan Fox is beautiful, and they look so in love, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. But then when we talk about it, it's like, I guarantee you that relationship is probably so unhealthy and toxic, and we romanticize it.
Yes, I 100% agree.
I think so. Go on.
Well, the thing is too, Alexandra, when we were talking about like social media and all that, like growing up in my day, we didn't have any of this. Everything was on TV. So this is so much more in your face through the phone, through Facebook, Instagram, whatever you guys see or however you get your information. It's just so much more attainable and repetitive. And what is it teaching our young youth? I mean, it is scary.
Right. You look to them and you're like, I want to be like them. Like, I want to be dark and like, and I want that. And you're right. Social media is so deceiving, as, we can dive into our next topic in the same realm. PDA packed Courtney and Travis Kravitz.
Yes.
Kourtney Kardashian is engaged to Travis Barker, which is huge. Is it too soon? Is it too fast? Do you see this coming? Where's Scott Disick? Has anyone checked in on him? What do you guys think of this?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's great if they're happy. And it's interesting to me that she has 3 kids, never got married with the first boyfriend, but the first boyfriend, to me, I know he's very good looking compared to who she's marrying, I can't speak. But I don't think he had his substance abuse under control for many years. And I think, having a background in social work myself and doing substance abuse work, I think that really interfered in his motivation. And maybe perhaps he just wasn't devoted enough. I mean, I don't know what the situation with him and Courtney was. Like, did he
addiction is a demon, so it's like I know there was cheating stuff talked about, but it almost seems like that was like a byproduct of his substance abuse problems.
Okay.
Yeah, and he did ask her to marry him, and she said no twice.
Oh. And she said no
twice. Yeah.
Okay. So good for her. That's good for her.
Her and Travis have been friends for years, but I mean, it is kind of fast. She changed her whole image. She chopped her hair. She used to be so private, and now everything is PDA in the public, the goth look. It's like, but maybe this is truly who she is.
A part of me wonders though, like, okay, so her taste in men always was a little different than her sister's taste in men.
Yes.
And she never voiced that like she always desired fame. If anything, she voiced the opposite, that it was like, not what she wanted. She's never been just like her sisters, and maybe she felt like they're a brand, you know what I mean, and they have to, and they sell this brand. It's like maybe she's like now coming into her own and like, I'm gonna dress however I want, be with whoever I want, doesn't need to fit the Kardashian mold. And Travis is sober, and I heard he's a good stepdad, dad, all the things, and it's like good for her. I don't get the same vibe of MGK and Megan Fox than I do Courtney and Travis.
It seems like it's a really good point, Jordan. I feel like it's more of a mature relationship, something that even though it seems quick, she's in her 40s. She's mature. She's not Megan Fox. she's a much different type of individual.
And she's known him for a long time. And this should give all women hope that you can find your person at any age.
Right. You hear that, Alexandra?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. And also the thing is too, she found a good man and she freaking grabbed him up. Like, why would she wait? I mean, this is a good guy. Why should she wait? Why should she do society standards? Look how it worked out for Chloe and Tristan. You know what I mean? She's picking a guy that's out of the mold and he's not a cheater. He's not a bad guy. So she should grab him up. Like, she got lucky.
He seems so appreciative of her. Like, just the way he looks at her and holds her and his body language and demeanor. Now, is the PDA thing a little too much for me? Like, it blows my, half of me is like, is this an inside joke? Where they're like, can we be nasty as hell in front of the cameras and just gross the world out? Because I don't get it.
Wait, are they really? They're really, really affectionate
all the time.
Like at breakfast. Like, how do you eat your food? Straddling your.
Oh my God. Making out, and they're always posting photos of it. And they are filming for the new Hulu show, which is just going to be the Kardashians.
Oh my God, I'm like to your father when we're eating. Lynn, can you like put your head up and like look at me? Is the food that interesting? Eat a little slower. I'm not kidding. I'm like, do you do that at restaurants with clients? Can you like eat slower and make eye contact? So this is hysterical, Jordan, that you bring that up. That they're straddling each other and barely taking a bite. I just want eye contact.
Maybe if you straddled him, he'd eat less.
Maybe if you straddled him, he would eat.
Oh my God, Alexander, we got it. All right. That's going to be our next task.
And I think personally, I just feel like, I don't know, conspiracy theory. I think that he proposed to her before all the social media one, because I feel like Kourtney's like a down low girl and she likes private special things. And my money is that he proposed in Vegas from their captions on Instagram. And then Kris Jenner, who knows how to make a lot of money, was like, Travis, we need to reenact this for the show. So that's what I think.
That's a good point. I bet it's true. I bet they did it in private and then redid a big thing. You're so right. Because a lot of people, they posted the ring, this and that. It felt like if it was real, they would have waited a few days to have their alone time. But it seems like they already had their alone time. And this, get it on camera, have every member of the family post. And that's what was happening.
That's what it seemed like. And that ring is really, really beautiful. Kourtney deserved a happy ending. She had all these kids. Scott was such a punk who was like, not like a Travis punk, but a punk, like a bad word punk, like a piece of poop. and him getting all these little jailbait 19-year-old girls disgusting.
So weird. It's so disgusting. We talked about that. Alexandra knows how I feel about that. Like the age of my daughter was, my younger daughter, like when she was 19. I'm like, because she's 20 now, I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
I never liked him. And then remember, Alexandra, about the Lord, how he was a Lord?
Yeah.
I was like, how is this guy a Lord? Like, remember that? That was like one of our first episodes.
It was weird. But do you guys think MGK and Megan Fox will get engaged? Like, I'm just so curious.
Yes, I do. I do. Absolutely.
Maybe they'll get engaged, but will they walk down the aisle? I don't know.
We all do things together?
Yes.
Yeah, and they're friends. I'm sure that like them working together brought them, because like Megan Fox and Kourtney did the Skims campaign and they did the VMAs, and I think they're both in the spotlight as these power couples. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a mutually beneficial relationship, because I don't think Kourtney and Travis party like Coulson and Megan.
Okay, that's my other question. If you know he's like a recovering addict and he has all of these problems, why are you smoking weed with him? And
I mean, Coulson was smoking weed on the stage. MGK, same person. He was doing like, he's not sober. When he looked like, okay, Megan, remember when MGK Coulson had the black tongue? That picture, she said they just got back from an ayahuasca retreat, which is like a really hardcore psychedelic. And it's not like a recreational drug. It's definitely a spiritual experience. But I think he struggles with his sobriety. I don't think he's sober. You have to replace, I know a lot about addiction as well. And it's like, you can't, like being a dry drunk or a dry addict and not finding like your addiction is a symptom, you know? So I think, who knows? But he doesn't look healthy.
Puts all of this into Megan Fox and like all of this hope and something happens.
It's almost like Kurt Cobain. You know, I feel like I'm watching Kurt Cobain.
Literally, like, and he has that song 27. It's like he's manifesting that. She said that she impacted his life in the biggest ways for him to like eat organically and to stop doing illegal street drugs. So there's pills you can get prescribed by a doctor and ruin your life.
Yeah,
So,
what a way to word that. So he doesn't go on the street for his pills. I got him to go.
but now he gets them prescribed. Like, but I don't think that about Courtney and Travis. I think they will. I thought Kanye and Kim would be forever. I remember being like, if they divorce, love isn't real. Like,
Well, you know what? Do we actually think they're divorcing? Because, I think she realized she's never going to get a powerful man like in his position. It's going to be very
I
hard
think
for
he
him.
cheated on her.
I do too. I think he admitted it in one of his songs
Yeah.
too on this new album. But he is another one who's struggling with mental health. He's all over the place.
Yes. And I think they'll reconcile. They have so much to reconcile for. And I know he's weird and outspoken, but I like him. Like something in my heart pulls me. But yeah, Kim does like powerful men, huh?
Yeah, and it's like she won't be able to find someone at Kanye level, I feel like. So she's like, you know what, whatever, let him live in Montana. I'll live here. We don't have the divorce. It'll be better for the image, and I can keep him under check if he's, in the Kardashian. We can kind of maybe monitor what he does. And the brand, the skims, all that, his creative genius advice won't go away.
Their family seems to like, if you make babies with them, like you're locked in the
I know.
group.
Oh my God. Yeah. But I just wonder if Scott and Travis will ever hang out. I don't
Like,
know.
what the hell? Because they're a pretty blended family. It seems like they all, so I want.
He may finally realize it's over. If there is no going back with Courtney now, let it go, Scott.
Right.
Wow. I wonder if Travis wants to kick his ass.
I bet he does. He loves Courtney. He's probably like that punk, not in the good way.
Yeah. And not in the good way.
But yes, so I think that covers all of the topics. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yes. I had so much fun talking with you both. You're very entertaining. I love watching you both too. Like that's entertaining too. So maybe YouTube should like be a thing for y'all too. I can see that. But you can find me on Instagram at the.horny housewife podcast and on TikTok at the Horny Housewife. And I have a link in my bio. So if someone wants to submit something truly anonymously, they can, because some people feel embarrassed to ask some of the questions. So feel free to ask me anything. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
It was a pleasure. We really had a lot of fun. Thank you for being our first video person that, we're all going to get to see, and for us being able to try this venue. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jordan. This was amazing. We have to do it again. The Horny and Raspies.
Collab. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.